Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday. What's the date? April 28th, 2 p.m. Eastern. Hope you're having a good week. Prices haven't changed a whole lot since we last talked on Wednesday afternoon, but there was certainly a whole lot of volatility in between. So, right after recording that video and having the bulls being really strong on Bitcoin, we had a massive dump and then a pretty significant bounce in response to that. So the reason for the dump was, if we can look here on Twitter, we got Zoomerfield letting us know that the likely culprit was the fake Arkham alert for the government-owned wallet. So essentially, what the market was looking at was, if there's any movement in this government-owned wallet, it's going to potentially increase the supply of Bitcoin because they're perhaps moving those Bitcoins to sell into the open market. And so the market then priced in inaccurately because it was a false signal, but they priced in a significant amount of coins entering the market and increasing that supply. And so then once, everybody got wind, hey, false alarm, and obviously a lot of bots and algos and everything come into play there where, you have people manually selling on that alert, but then it's just a cascading event of stop losses triggering, long liquidations, and that's what leads to this kind of drop. And in an hour, less than an hour, we dropped down over 8%. And I'm very impressed with the market's ability here to essentially get back to where we were at. And that is a good sign of an efficient market. Essentially saying, all right, we're pricing in this information. That information that we just priced in is incorrect. And thank you for the reminder of the camera there. And so we priced in the big drop. We then made it all the way back. And now we're tightening up. But again, a really impressive ability of the market to essentially fix pricing in the wrong information. So we have a lot of volatility to check in on. But in the end, not a ton has changed on the bigger picture. The weekly candle still looks very similar. And we're going to anticipate tightening ranges into the weekend. On the 4-hour time frame, we can see we've got the high pre-fake news. We've got the low. Bulls did defend support. And then a massive bounce, setting a lower high, and now tightening up a bit. So I would say, just looking at this, we've got 4-hour EMA 12. If that level holds, the bulls will have the advantage within this tightening range. And if we lose the 4-hour EMA 12, knowing that it's Friday and then that weekends have been extremely slow over this year. If we lose 4-hour EMA 12, we're just going to look for a long, drawn-out equilibrium pretty much all weekend. But a couple good things for the bulls. Number one, weekly chart still looks fine for the potential of a bull flag. Number two, the NASDAQ up at the high of the day and just hit the highest level today that we've seen in 8 months. So the tech sector earnings continue to be bullish that we've been seeing. And we have to be aware that we've got the FOMC next Wednesday. That's the next fundamental event. And Bitcoin and the dollar and metals and stocks, they're all going to see some notable volatility. So that's essentially the next fundamental event we're looking towards. And Wednesday FOMC is either going to confirm these weekly bull flags. We can see the NASDAQ already confirmed. The S&P 500 is trying to be a cup and handle, and it's on the verge of confirming. And again, Bitcoin, weekly bull flag. So the FOMC reaction is going to confirm these bull flags and have us hit new highs, or it's going to negate them and have a bearish reaction. But as I keep saying, and as I will continue to say, in my opinion, we're going to see another leg up, and then I'm going to look for long-term 4-month lower highs and tightening ranges. And we can see on Bitcoin, we know anything under 69,000 would be a 4-month lower high. We know the 50% bounce retracement is towards the $45,000 range. And again, there's just so many names that the 4-month lower high is the most likely scenario for me. We're watching the dollar. The dollar bulls tried to confirm a daily uptrend. They failed to do so, rejecting just under daily resistance. So we've got a nice tightening equilibrium. Again, likely going to be the FOMC that determines whether the dollar drops to fresh lows or confirms the first daily uptrend in 5 or 6 weeks. But I'm watching the dollar for a long-term 4-month high or low. No sign of it. It might take 3 months for that to happen. But again, it's just in the back of my mind is the bigger picture. And there's so many stocks with that same setup. We're looking for Meta, 4-month lower high. We're looking for the NASDAQ 4-month lower high. We're looking for, I mean, you name it. Any name that dropped massively. Netflix. Netflix has bounced 100%, but we're looking for a 4-month lower high. So not going to lose sight of that bigger picture, but also recognizing the bulls have absolute control in the short term. And I'm talking about essentially the way you can use a nice clear statement for where we stand right now and have a nice benchmark level. We could say the NASDAQ is a bull flag as long as 309.89 holds. That's now our key support. Bitcoin is a bull flag as long as 27,000 support holds. So the simple statement is if the current low of consolidation holds, they're bull flags. The only way they are not bull flags is if bears can negate them with the help of the FOMC and breaking the lows of current consolidation. So with that mindset, for me, the burden is on the bears. The bears have to prove to us that they're not bull flags, because if they don't, then they're bull flags. Little bit of relative strength in the crypto stocks today, although they're losing it a bit. Riot has had this top that it's been struggling with at $12, and it was a really nice double top that I missed for a short. But 1209, 1208, 1203, 1210, and here we are pulling back almost 3% now from that resistance rejection. And that's with the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 at the high of the day. So essentially, we had a little bit of relative strength in Riot, and then once we hit that resistance, that transformed into relative weakness. But no real clues in these crypto names, aside from the fact that, they're definitely weaker than Bitcoin. They're nowhere near the recent highs. MARA, same thing, nowhere near the recent highs, while Bitcoin is fairly close to the recent highs, only, how many percent away? Let's check. Bitcoin needs about 6% to head to the higher high. And again, you can see the daily inside bar yesterday, another daily inside bar very likely today, and the most likely scenario after you see significant volatility in both directions, it's scout that equilibrium. That's trading 101 right there. So it's not always the case, obviously, but I talk about how trading equilibriums is one of my edges as a trader. And that's the guide for me. If you see significant volatility in one direction and then retracement of 50% or more in the opposing direction, if you scout an equilibrium, you're going to be right far more often than you're wrong. And that helps establish the trade game plan. So let's talk about the drop here on Bitcoin, because obviously when you see that amount of volume, you know to be looking for news, because that's anytime there's volume of that magnitude, it's news as the likely culprit. Bitcoin's drop volume on the hourly on Coinbase was the highest hourly volume that we've seen in over a month. So it was very notable. And, anybody that tried to play first 5-minute oversold conditions got beat up real bad. Anybody that tried to play 15-minute oversold conditions could potentially salvage things, as 15-minute RSI got oversold. Definitely still early, but not quite as early as 5-minute. And we talked about that in the last live stream, about the traders that are waiting for 15-minute oversold. And it has to do with aligning the most likely scenario on different time frames. So you look at this 4-hour move before the dump, we know 4-hour consolidation is inevitable after a move like that with the RSI approaching 80 and no consolidation on the way up. And so if I'm looking for a 4-hour high or low, I'm not interested in first 5-minute oversold conditions. I'm only interested in first 5-minute oversold conditions if I'm looking for an hourly high or low. If I'm looking for a 4-hour high or low, I'm looking for the 15-minute to get oversold. And again, that still might have resulted in a loss. And I took a loss on MARA. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But again, much more forgiving versus if you're scaling in right before things get ugly. So what that means is a lot of traders will, attempt that scaling in, and maybe they're too early. And it's similar to the last ETH trade that I took. Maybe that was 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago. I forget. It was over the weekend. But it was essentially my first scale in was too soon. So then when the bounce takes place, I'm then exiting at break even because I recognize, nope, not the ideal entry. I was a bit early, and I'm just going to, take this as a non-event trade and exit a lot of my position. And so the traders that did use 15-minute oversold condition and scaled into a couple positions if they didn't stop out by dollar risk at the lows, then, obviously if you hold in hindsight, would have made it the whole way back. But a lot of traders then exit at break even to lower their exposure because the first entries were too soon. So I talk a lot about the advantages of trading these crypto stocks versus crypto themselves and why I prefer it, but there are disadvantages as well. And so one of the disadvantages was at the end of the day on this dump on MARA 2 days ago, or was I yesterday? 2 days ago, I was playing this bounce and I ended up taking a loss. And the disadvantage for me here was time. So time was a factor here. We're dumping into the end of the day. I know that once the market closes, I don't want to keep a position because liquidity dries up significantly after hours in these names. And also the fact that, anything can happen overnight. And at that point in time, we weren't sure that it was a false alarm leading to the size of the dump that we saw. And if it were a crypto that I was scaling into, time would be no factor. And I would have been able to let the bounce play out and just have more control in extended hours. So that's one of the major advantages that crypto does still have over these crypto stocks. It's the fact that they trade 24 hours and the liquidity definitely changes, over the weekend and such, but the liquidity at 5 p.m. is not massively different versus the liquidity at 4 p.m. So that was that was really essentially the first time in the last, couple of months that there has been a scenario where, okay, there is the disadvantage of trading this crypto stock. So if you're interested, again, talking about the strategy of playing these dumps, I've got the YouTube video. If you look crypto breakdowns chart, guys, I'll post this link if this works here. How I trade crypto bounces. I talk about it in depth, way more in depth than I can talk about it in this video. So I would suggest checking that out because I talk all about, how I scale in, how I determine where I'm going to be scaling in, whether I'm aggressive or conservative, how much space to put between those entries, what do I do once I use up all my ammo of the positions I'm willing to take, etc. But again, most likely scenario right now is tightening equilibriums after the significant volatility. So bulls are going to be looking for a higher low. We've got a 4-hour stair-step drop the last 6 candles. Eventually, if we get a fresh low of consolidation here, I'm going to go to the 12-hour, and I'll just be watching for a 12-hour higher low and a continued tightening range. Or you could go to the 6-hour. You just condense it down, smooth it out, and we'll be looking for the 6-hour higher low. And then if it's a big enough pullback, we'll be looking for the lower high. And next thing you know, it'll be Sunday night heading into futures open. Dominance chart, still up at the highs. So still showing us that Bitcoin is a lead bull. There is still banking fear narrative going on. And if you're bullish Bitcoin, that's a good thing. FRC is the small regional bank that's now collapsing and joining SVB. And it's down massively, 75%, 80% the last 4 days. And, we're going through the rounds now of, is the Fed about to take it over and about to see over the weekend, new ownership? And essentially, are we going to see what we've seen in the recent past as far as a bank going under and being taken over? But the more this happens, the more, again, that's the positive narrative for Bitcoin. So keeping an eye on that. ETH, we can see daily inside bars here as well. Same deal. So I'd be on a different time frame now for clarity. The 6, let's go to the 12. So you can go to the 12-hour. Essentially, we just had inside bar, inside bar, inside bar, bear break. And now we scout the 12-hour higher low compared to the low of the dump. But ETH continues to be much weaker than Bitcoin, as ETH BTC is a lower high every single day for the last 8 days and is doing nothing to shift this momentum. As long as we're in a 4-hour downtrend, as long as 4-hour EMA 12 is resistance, then Bitcoin is stronger than ETH. And that has been the case for a while at this point. Litecoin had a double bottom hold, so it was on the verge of confirming a daily bear flag. A lot of altcoins did confirm daily bear flags, and Litecoin held support. So remaining sideways as well, going to the 12-hour. And we're going to look for a 12-hour. Actually, let's zoom in. Litecoin's a little bit different. Just playing around with the time frames where you find clarity. I like the 8-hour. High, low of the dump, lower high, higher low, lower high. Just a nice tightening range. And LTC BTC is weakening, and bears wanted to see this confirmed downtrend. And so we're still watching. Is Litecoin going to continue its weekly consolidation before setting a weekly higher low compared to 65.39? So where we stand right now, NASDAQ bulls look great. S&P 500 bulls, there's resistance right here still, but they're in control. Bitcoin bulls look good. The altcoins don't look nearly as good as Bitcoin and many other things. And there's a lot of names. Just looking at, ICP had a great bounce. It's one of these names that dumped to a lower low on the reaction and then saw a bounce of 20-some%, big follow through. But look at how we're nowhere near where we came from. So even though we've had a great bounce, we're still looking for a daily lower high as the most likely scenario, and we still have a lot of work to do. Bitcoin's 6% from its recent high, but a lot of these altcoins are way further away. 23% for ICP. And you can go down the list. Obviously some names are stronger than others, but there are a lot of altcoins that are nowhere near their recent highs and are still scouting daily lower highs. I think we used Link as an example in the recent video. And one of the downside for the bears is when that, we knew we were scouting daily lower highs on all these altcoins. That's one of the themes of the video that we talked about on Wednesday. But it was really hard to get that short because, again, the bears just stampeded out of nowhere and we just rolled over. And it didn't really give the bears much of a good opportunity to get that daily lower high bearish entry. I was talking about Litecoin and saying, the ideal scenario for me here on Litecoin is one more 4-hour high or low, and then we scout the lower high, and we just fell right through. So that's an example of, dead on right. Looking for altcoin daily lower highs, on point, looking in the right direction, knew it was the most likely scenario, but in reality, grabbing those short positions probably wouldn't have happened for most people. I know I can't short crypto, but if I could, I would have missed those entries, without a doubt, because of how it happened. And, just be forgiving with yourself because that's the kind of scenario where you just say, I shouldn't beat up on myself for not getting that bearish entry because it came out of nowhere very quickly. BNB, just want to check in on the potential of this rising wedge to be keeping an eye on. Bull breaks lacking follow through, and we're right at this uptrend support line, potentially losing it today, trying to hold it. And this is an example of, again, I love... My computer just died. Hold on, if you're still there. I see I'm still streaming, but everything just went black. All right, we still got the mic live. I kicked the power. Apologies. We're going to reboot it. For those of you that want to stick around, I'll be back in 3 to 4 minutes. That's one nice advantage of having the separate laptop for streaming. The stream is alive. We're just frozen. So, I can sing you a song. All right, we're booting back up here. I use my modem as a footrest sometimes, and I think I just learned my lesson about not doing that anymore. All right, let's see. That should... All right, not as bad as I thought it would be. Appreciate you sticking around. I think we're back, good to go. There might be delays with my audio, video syncing and stuff, but we're going with it. All right, so I was just talking about Baba. So Baba, we were looking at the potential of a daily rising wedge, not Baba, Binance. I am in a Baba long, but Binance, we've got a potential rising wedge. So what that means for me is I like the visual guide trend lines. I use them for that purpose. And, you know, Big Cheds does not like trend lines at all. But I do find some use in them to help me with some clarity. So let's just use this as an example. It's always price action over trend lines, but, and I actually just saw something else to talk about on this pattern. So it's always price action over trend lines, but I can look at this and say, okay, it's a potential rising wedge showing me bull exhaustion, but I know we must break 315.30 for it to follow through, because that would be this bigger picture downtrend confirming. And so if we hold 315.30, I don't even care if this candle closes here. If we hold 315.30, then bulls defend support and they keep control. But if we lose it, then that's the pattern confirming for me. But I just went back and looked at this support back here and say, okay, well, what if I use that as my anchor? Then how does this potential rising wedge look? And I can see that, you know, we're not really in play at this point. So that would be a scenario where we could break my shorter term rising wedge, but if we hold this longer term uptrending support, then bulls keep the weekly uptrend. So essentially, if this were going to be a successful long-term rising wedge, you got to break 315 to confirm a daily downtrend, and then you got to break the weekly support of 299 to confirm the loss of the weekly uptrend and the bear break on that longer-term time frame. So it's worth paying attention to and keeping an eye on, but it's always price levels instead of trend lines. The trend lines are just the visual guide for patterns. It's the price levels breaking that confirms the trend changes or not. All right, I'm going to take some crypto requests this time because last time we did not. I really liked the questions last time, so I appreciate those. And thanks for the likes and the shares as always. Back in the chat room. All right. Reading questions now. Here we go. Close to quitting construction job to learn to trade. So the biggest risk for quitting your job to learn how to trade is the amount of pressure that you then put on yourself. So I would suggest doing everything that you can to keep some form of income coming in so that you don't have pressure. Because again, as I always say, if you go break even your first year of trading, you just got a whole bunch of free education, and that's great. And so if you go into trading saying, well, I just gave up my income and now I'm going to learn how to trade and I better figure it out real quick so I can have some income, it's a huge amount of pressure to put on yourself. And I personally thrived as a trader after starting the Chart Guys. Why? Because I then had income. Before that, I was taking my income, my cost of living, out of my brokerage account, and it was staying flat. I was making some money, but all the money I was making was going to cost of living, and my account was staying flat. I was not leveling up. And as soon as I had secondary income from the Chart Guys, I then went aggressive in crypto 2017, and I was then able to leave my account alone and stop all withdrawals from it because I started living off my Chart Guys income, and it allowed me to compound my gains and level up. And it was a huge relief of stress to have that income to cover my cost of living. Because again, if my cost of living is based on my trading results, it's a different psychological mindset. And if that were the case in 2017, I would have made 10% of the money that I made in crypto at best, because I would have had a more conservative mindset. This is my lifeblood here. I have to defend this. I have to be protective. I can use a little bit of this capital, but as soon as I had cost of living covered, I can use all this capital. And it was a very significant psychological shift for me. So that would be my biggest takeaway, is just ensure that you're giving yourself a runway of years, because you should not expect to be consistently profitable as a trader for your first couple of years. Year 3, 4, absolutely, you want to be getting your stride and starting to have things click and starting to show some consistency. But year 1 and 2, to have that kind of expectation, it's a ton of pressure to put on yourself. All right, we're going to do ADA and Luna. The first thing I want to know when I'm looking at the altcoins is how much of the move did we bounce back and retrace? And we can see we got right back to the high, and now we're just doing the standard equilibrium on ADA. We had a great double bottom and a great double top. The bulls feasted off support, the bears feasted off resistance, and now we got the equilibrium. Let's go to the 6 hour or 8 hour time frame, or 12 hour. Again, doesn't really matter. It's personal preference, whatever you find the most clarity in. But this is a clear equilibrium. And we're scouting a 12 hour high or low compared to the low of Wednesday. And then we'll probably be scouting a 12 hour lower high. And then we'll look to futures open on Sunday. When you have such an equilibrium forming, and again, even without the weekend, we'd put this at a high probability. And when you throw in the weekend, where we can now assume a lack of volume and volatility, because that's been the consistent pattern, our confidence goes way up for the equilibrium tightening range. Luna has not topped out yet on the bounce. So same kind of massive dump, and all about 132. So if recent history of all these other coins shows us anything, it is keep an eye out for a top fish. Bears should try top fish at these resistance levels, because for so many names, they have worked. And so if we reject from 131.5, we then look for the 8 hour or 12 hour high or low, but we have not topped out just yet. And we've got a little 30-minute equilibrium potentially shaping up. And if this 30-minute equilibrium breaks bear, the lower high is set into consolidation, and if it breaks bull, then we'll be right there at that resistance. Got rid of there it is, RSI. ARB and Matic. So ARB had a much weaker bounce. Look at the retracement. So again, measure the retracement. Most altcoins saw a more significant bounce retracement than this 70%. Most were 85% or more. And we're way closer Again, you don't necessarily want to measure percentages because the lower cap names are going to have, a 5% range on ARB is way different than 5% on Bitcoin. But we want to look at the retracements. We've topped out and we've now retraced more than half of the bounce. A lot of altcoins are nowhere near retracing more than half of that bounce. So there's some relative weakness in ARB. And without even looking, I know ARB BTC is likely at the lows. And that's because we can clearly see relative weakness just by comparing individual names. And, it's nice and easy to pull up ARB BTC and know right away. But I like both methods because, that's like putting on your detective hat and saying, all right, these are the clues. These are how it looks similar. This is how it looks different. And then almost it's like a test where I'm turning the test over to see the answer by looking at ARB BTC and saying, yep, I was right. There is relative weakness there. So it's all about 132 from here for the bulls to try and salvage this tightening range and remain within this tightening range. Our lower high is clearly set at 145. And just viewing this as an equilibrium, and the bulls must hold 132 for a higher low to form. Matic. Same deal. So we've already set the 8-hour lower high. We know Matic's been a lead bear recently. And again, as long as Matic BTC is at the lows with no support, it is a lead bear. It'll bounce eventually, but it's a daily stair-step drop with zero support nearby. And it has been a lead bear of altcoins over the last couple of weeks. So Matic USDT, 8-hour equilibrium is our guide. What was that equilibrium? Never really materialized. That was a daily. But I like the 8-hour. We're looking for an 8-hour higher low to try and form compared to 94. We already can see it's weaker because we dropped to a lower low here. Most altcoins didn't. Well, no, I take that back. A lot of them did. The stronger ones did not. But we broke to the lower low. Lower high set at 103. And now we're looking for an 8-hour higher low compared to 94. FTM. Do a couple more here. 8-hour lower high set, 437. And you might be saying, I've never heard Dan talk about the 8-hour time frame. Different setups require different time frames for clarity. And it's just, cycling through the time frames. Where is it most clear? Where is it the most stair step showing me the tightening range? And by stair step, I just mean the candles with a higher low every candle. And then once it breaks, our lower high is set. Versus if I'm zoomed in to the 4-hour, you've got an uptrend, but then you lose it right away. There's just better clarity out there on just a little bit more zoomed out. My camera is real bright. Got a real bright face. RNDR. It is not that bright right now. So RNDR, we got 8-hour consolidation underway. Anything over 220 is a higher low. We can say it's a relative bull. We had a 4-hour tightening range break to higher highs. Not many names clearly broke over those higher highs. The fact that we're in blue sky breakout, right? Nope. All right, I take that back. The fact that we're at the highest levels that we've seen in a year shows a lack of resistance. There's a lot of names that have a lot more overhead resistance, but the bulls are having an easier time seeing continuation due to that lack of resistance. Definitely want to be cautious because the daily candle is shaping up a bearish reversal doji with a big upper wick. The 4-hour, this is where I start to scout a head and shoulders because of the current retracement. We've got the left shoulder, and this would be the head. If we hold 220, it's still a 4-hour uptrend, but we have to be cautious of a setup where we change from a clear 4-hour uptrend and then shift into a 4-hour downtrend. So no red flags at this point, but the size of this 4-hour consolidation means be a little bit cautious. And I did this with QQQ today with a day trade. So QQQ today, we have recovered, but I saw this all bull morning. I saw the size of this retracement. I said, okay, I want to be a little bit protective. And on the 5-minute lower high, I went short. And that was my, hedge for my IRA. And the reason I did that is because this pullback was big enough for me to say that a 5-minute lower high is the most likely result of the next bounce. So when I'm looking at something like RNDR, it's the same thing. Bulls still have the uptrend. They're still strong, but the size of this retracement is starting to get to the point where we are creating the space for a 4-hour lower high to be the result of the next bounce. And so bears will be keeping an eye out for the potential of a 4-hour lower high next bounce. Ideally, I'd want to see the price drop down to 230 and below to then be really confident that a 4-hour lower high is the most likely scenario from there. But it's already enough to just have that in the back of our mind. All right, let's just bring this over. How to navigate the longer days, the summer, farming and trading. For me, it's less screen time and focusing on longer term time frames. So more swing trading versus day trading if you'd rather be outside. So rather than the 15-minute and the hourly, you're looking at the daily and the 4-hour as your short-term time frames. Do I ever worry that Coinbase will simply lock me out of my account for no good reason? I don't. I don't worry about that. I don't put a significant amount of capital on there, but it's not a concern that I have. I mean, I'm more concerned with, just the exchange, I don't know, going bankrupt or something than I am just not working anymore. But that is something to be aware of. FTX is the perfect example of that. And so the reason I choose Coinbase over something like FTX or KuCoin or other things is because it's licensed in the US. There is FDIC insurance. So there are some, fail safes that make it less of a risk than many other exchanges. But there's always a risk with anything when we're talking digital numbers in cyberspace. Hey, Sam from Canada. We already looked at FTM, right? Or no, we looked at FT. So yeah, if you're looking to get back into FTM after taking some nice profit, I mean, it's just a bottom fishing play where you're looking for the higher low compared to 395. Breaking that level would prove you wrong and have you want to be out of that position. And you're just looking for an hourly trend change to try and shape up as the first indication, or even a 30-minute. 30-minute bull break to try and indicate the 8-hour high or low is being set. You could go off of 395 as a stop. That's a long ways away. You could wait for the 30-minute time frame to show you something bullish, and then you say, all right, 411 is either the 8-hour high or low, or I'm wrong. And then you use that stop level, which is way less risk. And that's the level that you then go off of, where if that level breaks, then you're wrong and you stop out. Nothing wrong with sizing down your capital to get back in the flow of things and to find consistency. All right, XRP, and then we will wrap it up. XRP is holding well. We have not set the 8-hour lower high yet. We do have the double top that bears have been all over. So double top right at 483. 4-hour bounce underway. So we would essentially have to confirm a 4-hour downtrend by failing 483 and breaking 464 if we're going to confirm that the 8-hour lower high is set, and then we scout a higher low. So bulls are holding well. And it's all about 464 support at this point. And we compare it to Bitcoin, and we can see, well, It's tough to say because we started 4-hour consolidation. No, yeah, we're holding on better than Bitcoin. Confirming XRP, BTC. Trying to get back to bounce highs. If I'm looking at an altcoin, I am much more interested in an altcoin that has the potential for a longer term higher low, a weekly higher low like XRP, versus a name like Matic that's at, multi-month lows with no support. So I'd be more interested in an altcoin where a weekly higher low is on the table versus a name that's in free fall. And the names in free fall can see big percentage moves when that bottom is finally hit and the BTC pairing gets the big green daily candle. But most likely scenarios, XRP BTC, for me, the most likely scenario is a higher low compared to 13.4. So just watching for that to shape up. And even the fact that it's a green candle today, the vast majority of altcoins, their BTC pairings are red today. So it stands out a bit. Definitely protect your capital. Put enough capital on your exchange where if it is gone, it's not the end of the world. Always prepare for the worst case scenario. And just have a game plan to be prepared for it mentally, and that way you don't get blindsided. All right, I appreciate you all tuning in. Thanks again for the likes and the shares. Did we get over 100? Not yet. I'm going to like it. That still counts. Do good things. Have a great weekend. Watch for tightening ranges. FOMC on Wednesday. Burden on bears to prove to us that Bitcoin is not a weekly bull flag. See you soon.